Hello everybody, good afternoon. As I told you last time, today we are going to start different section of the research methodology. As I told you last time also, today's our professor is Professor Basudev Siruburi. He is a former director, UGC DI Center at BRC. And since last year, he has been delivering lecture of research and publication ethics, which is an important part of our research methodology. Your guide may tell you how to do the experiment, but how to collect data with the proper ethics, that will, it is your responsibility. And today he will, for next few lectures, he will be telling us various aspects of research and publication ethics. And with this, I welcome Professor Siriburi to start his lecture. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, students. First of all, let me thank the HBNI and in particular Professor B.K. Nayak for inviting me for this particular module of lectures. And this will be on research and publication ethics. And so I would like to thank all these people here for inviting me again this year. I had already given this lecture module last year. And of course, I suppose there's no one in this group who's again repeating. So if there is someone, then of course, it will be a boring thing for them. But otherwise, I'm sure that you will appreciate these series of lectures. Now, when you talk about ethics in research, this is something a little out of the ordinary, because most of you, I presume that you are all from science background, you're students of physics or chemistry, biology, and probably there are some people who are from the humanities also in this group. I'm not so sure. But for people other than those in humanities, this ethics in research is something probably not all of you have full familiarity with. Now, why do you need to even talk about ethics? See, this particular course has been mandated by the University Grants Commission that all students who have been registered for PhD, it's mandatory for them to undergo this course on research methodology and research and publication ethics, and also on intellectual property rights. So why do you think the University Grants Commission has actually mandated this for all research scholars? Probably some of you probably are even offended that who are you to teach me ethics? Okay, so it so happens that I'm sure most of you have been taught something or the other about ethics, what is right and what is wrong, by your own, say, parents, for example. So you feel that you are perfectly an ethical person and you don't have to bother about learning of ethics. So then why do you think UGC has asked all institutes of higher learning to mandatorily undertake this course for students? So in doing so, the UGC has actually come out with a special volume, and this was something done about 2 to 3 years ago. They have formed a consortium for academic research and ethics. And the reason for which UGC has done this is basically to promote and improve academic and research integrity as well as publication ethics in institutes of higher learning in the country. So when you say institutes of higher learning, it also means the universities, institutes like the DA institutes, DARC or RRCAT or IGCAR. So whichever institute which is also involved in higher studies like doing PhDs. So they have brought out this consortium for academic research and ethics to basically look at the problems which the academic people and the research people in the country are now increasingly facing. Okay. So, see, for example, when I did my PhD, that was long ago, and I never bothered to, I was not told to do anything in ethics or do a course in ethics. And it worked fine for us. There was no issue at all. But that's what we thought. Okay. But then in reality, the issue has always been there. The problem of ethics and research, integrity of research, these issues have always been there. Probably they were not so much discussed in the open in those days. And that was a thing which we underwent. And now, of course, I'm more 60 and you guys, probably you're all around 20 years of age, etc. So the difference between you and me is that you're starting out into your research career now, and I have a 40-year lead above you. So I have all the experience which I have already undergone, which I can happily share with you. Yeah. So I'm sure that whatever I share with you would be of some help at least to some of you in your future careers of research. So when we say that UGC has come out with this module of or the Consortium for Academic Research and Ethics, it was basically to help the Indian academic community to how to go about doing their research in a proper, ethical, and with full integrity. Now, to start with, for example, when you want to publish your data, you do it in a journal. Okay, you do it in a scientific journal. Now, how do you decide which journal that you should publish your research work? The issue is now compared to say 40 years ago or 20 years ago, there's a huge explosion in the internet, uh, what you call Internet of Things, etc. Everything is now available on the internet. In my time, there was no internet at all, and we had to rely on going to the library all the way and looking up the journals and reading up the papers, etc. And even to publish a research paper, one had to tabulate all the research and send them by post and all that. But all that is now gone. You simply you sit in front of your computer and you go on sending your results to some journal and things like that. So now, how do you choose a proper journal for your research work? And why do you think that UGC has to step in here? Okay, you can choose whatever you want. So there's a problem here. The problem is that publishing has become a big business. Now, there is a pressure not only on the student, but also on the faculty that they have to publish their research work and get papers, research papers, etc., for the advancement of the career or to gain certain awards and things like that. So now, in a way, it has become a sort of a rat race to get publications and things like that. Now, there are people, unscrupulous people, who have actually joined this game. And what they try to do is, for a right price, they will happily publish whatever results you have in the form of a paper. And these are what are so-called the predatory journals. Okay, so these journals, they have nothing else but business as their bottom line, and they just don't care about what is the research done, whether the research was carried out in an ethical manner or not, what the results are. They just don't care. As long as you pay them certain amount of money, they're willing to publish your results in the form of a paper. And so, similar to this journals, it also happens with conferences where people go and present their research work in person. Okay. So even these conferences, there are certain conferences which are called predatory conferences where they have nothing connected with the subject matter, etc. Their sole point is to make money out of the conferences. So basically, these journals or the conference people, they do not follow what are called standard ethical policies. Now, to prevent the Indian academic community, okay, UGC is bothered about the Indian academic community. We don't care about what goes on outside. So, UGC thought that the Indian academic community must be made aware of these pitfalls and help the academic community to choose their journals wisely, properly, as well as the conferences to publish their research work. So by doing so, what happens is that the quality of research publications will get automatically improved. And then not only this, the academic and research integrity also improves tremendously. And there is something called publication ethics, which I'll be talking about in the lectures which will be coming in the near future. And so they would like to enhance the academic integrity and publication ethics. And then, so the bottom line is that the quality of research in Indian universities will get automatically improved by doing this. So that was the basic intention for UGC to mandate this particular course so that it will help our Indian students and faculty, the Indian academic community, in following proper research, ethical research practices. Okay, so now I would like to start upon the plan of my the course. So the next few lectures, I guess there are about 8 to 9 or 10 lectures. I'll go through the syllabus which has been prescribed by the University Grants Commission. So it starts with introduction to philosophy and ethics. Again, probably some of you might feel what is the necessity for learning about philosophy when you're not going to use it, or learning about ethics as a subject when you're not going to use it in your research work. But that's rather a misguided thought, because it so turns out that it is worthwhile to learn something about philosophy and ethics before you actually undertake a research program. So I'll try to give a very brief introduction to what is ethics and what is philosophy. And so in doing so, of course, I'll be talking about certain things which probably you have not heard of, or probably you may not find it useful later also. But then it is, as I said, really required to do this. And so I'll try to keep it as short as possible and give you a brief introduction to philosophy and ethics down the ages, what has happened the last few hundreds of years. Okay. See, philosophy and ethics is a very, very old subject. Okay. It was relevant, say, 2000 years ago. It is relevant even today. Okay. Then after this introduction, then I'll talk about ethics in science and research. So that's where the actual coursework for you starts in this particular module. Then moving on, we have intellectual honesty and research integrity. That's again a very important topic. So I'll try to show to you how maintaining integrity, research integrity and intellectual honesty is so much important for your research work. Then come the scientific misconducts. So this is what is called the bread and butter of the whole course. So this most important aspect of ethics in research deals with scientific misconducts. So I write FFP here. So this is basically falsification, plagiarism, and things like that. So I'll be dealing with this topic in great detail uh, as I proceed with this lectures. Then there is something called redundant publications. See, redundant publications are sort of a bane of research. Again, this comes about because there's intense pressure on the academic people, like faculty and students included, to publish as much as possible. Numbers matter. Okay, the more number of papers you publish, okay, it adds to your value. That's some kind of a sort of a mistaken concept. Okay, now to do this, to generate more number of papers, sometimes people what they try to do is they take the same set of results or data and try to publish it in several papers by just changing a little bit here and there. But basically what happens is that the results are all same. So except for the first publication, all the rest of the publication are just redundant publication because you're showing the same data again and again in different forms. Okay, then there is another issue called selective reporting and then data misrepresentation. This is another problem where people try to uh, publish their results in a highly selective manner. What do you mean by this? Here, what happens is that you have a set of results of some experiments or whatever, or in theory of whatever you've done in your coursework, in your research. But then you find that among the results which you have collected, there are certain results which probably help you to publish a particular line of thought. Okay, and some of the other results in the same set of data, okay, they're not so conducive to your hypothesis. So what you try to do is you try to ignore the inconvenient results and select only those results which are convenient for you, convenient for publishing, convenient for getting recognition or whatever. So you do a selective reporting, and this is again, it is very harmful, especially more so in the case of medicine. In the field of medicine and medical research, the selective reporting is highly dangerous. In fact, it can lead to maybe even loss of life. And similarly, data misrepresentation. Okay, so you know how a particular set of data behaves, etc. But then if you show it in the right way, it may not be again conducive to your line of thought, okay, or it may not be conducive to the journal where you wish to publish your result. So what you try to do is you try to alter the representation of the data in a manner that it actually hides the reality. Okay, and you give a false representation of the actual data. Okay, so this is something called data misrepresentation. Then come what are called ethical issues and ethical committees. Again, this is again a very, very important thing because different fields of research, whether it's physics, chemistry, or life sciences, medicine, they all have different kinds of ethical issues. And to deal with these different kinds of ethical issues, there are what are called ethical committees, which are formed by every institute, in fact. So now if you see every institute or university, they have what are called ethical committees. And so whenever there is a point of debate or a point of argument about what is right or what is wrong, so these ethical committees come into the picture and they will try to arbitrate and find out what is gone wrong or what is the problem, and then they deliver their judgments. But these are of course specific to those institutes where they are formed, and also to those particular fields. Then come the lectures on publication ethics. This is again a very, very important thing, because finally, whatever hard work you carry out in your research, you have to publish it, or you have to give it a representation in some public forum. Because if the public doesn't know about your hard work or research, there's no point in doing the research. Okay. So your peer group or the public which supports your research, they have a right to know, okay, what you are actually working on. Now, again, at this point of time, when you want to publish your data or results, again, there are certain ethical practices which are required to be followed. And there are problems here. People uh, try to do many wrong things, and they get into trouble. Sometimes people get away with it for some time, but then ultimately, okay, at some point of time later or whenever you get caught, and when you get caught, it's going to be very bad for you. Okay. And so there are certain things here which I would like to talk about in the forthcoming lectures. What are the importance of publication ethics? What are the guidelines one has to follow? And there's something called conflict of interest, which again is a very, very important aspect. The conflict of interest pertains not only to the academic workers like the students or the faculty, it also pertains to the people who publish your results. It also pertains to the editors of the journals where you are going to publish your results. So everyone involved, and the referees who will be referring your papers, everyone involved will have what is called a conflict of interest. So you have to make sure that everyone has to make sure there is no conflict of interest involved. Okay. I'll be, of course, talking about it in detail when I come to that lecture. Then I give you specific examples about publication misconducts. So here also there are many issues like authorship issues, which is a very common publication misconduct, which many people face at some point of the time or the other. Then then how to deal with complaints and how to make appeals when you have issues connected with publication misconduct. Then finally, you have what are called as predatory journals and publishers, which I briefly touched upon in the previous slide. So this also now has become a big bane for academic research. And these days, I mean, the world is full of predatory journals and publishers. Not only, of course, not only you'll find this in field of research, you'll find it even in life also. You have people who are predators who are out to take advantage of you, okay, in whatever form they want. So in this case, predatory journals, as I said, they'll try to prey upon your failings or your internal pressures, where you want to publish your papers as soon as publish your results as soon as possible, or by hook or crook you want to publish your results. And there are these predatory journals ready waiting for you to provided they get a certain amount of money, they're willing to publish your results. And there are issues like many people are not aware that a certain journal is a predatory journal. So you end up sending, you might have a very nice bit of research work which you would like to publish, and it could have probably easily got published in a very, very good, well-reputed journal. But unfortunately, you fall prey to this kind of a predatory journal, and you send it to them, and you have had it. Okay. So not only they will usurp your results, they will create all kinds of issues and problems. And similarly with the publishers also, where you have these predatory publishers, and also again, as I said, you have also predatory conferences. So I would like to give you examples where how these people operate and how to identify who are these predatory journals and how they approach very gullible people to get hold of their research results. So this would be the rough plan of plan of my lectures for the next few lectures. Okay, now we start with what is meant by this word ethics. Again, if you look at any dictionary on the internet, or if you go to a library and open a dictionary, it's a very, very well known word, and you can easily get several explanations for what is this word ethics. So then, what do you actually really mean by ethics? So, see, ethics it's a very, very difficult thing to understand, really speaking. We may feel that it is very trivial, okay, but unfortunately, this particular field is a very, very difficult field to understand, really, because it is connected with your behavior. It is connected with behavior of man in a particular society at a particular time. So there are several things involved when you talk about ethics. So if you go to any dictionary on the internet or anywhere, you can see a very standard definition that ethics means that moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. Okay. So what do you mean by saying moral principles that govern a person's behavior? So how does a person have moral principles? Okay. So this again happens to be you need to know in which society the person is living, in which area of the world he's living, and at what time. See, so these a moral principle, what is considered moral, say 100 years ago, may be immoral today, and what is considered immoral 100 years ago, or even as early as say 50 years ago or 20 years ago, may be considered absolutely moral today. So what has changed? Basically, here there's some change in the basic ethics here. So the society which determined that a particular behavior or a particular principle was immoral, say 30 years ago, the same society now feels that, okay, that was a different age. Now that particular behavior is perfectly moral. So it all depends on the society, the time where you talk about this principle, ethics, etc., and the place. So there are certain principles, rules of conducts, standard of behavior, and the correctness of a specified conduct. So all these things, they are all connected with the person's behavior in a particular society. Okay. So nowadays, now you find that many people there's an association called PETA, PETA. Okay, I think it's called Ethical Treatment of Animals or something like that. I don't know what P means, but something or PETA. So they question how scientists can do some cruel experiments on animals. But then these were done since ages. It's only now that we feel, the present society feels that you should not be doing certain kinds of experiments on animals. Animals also have rights. Okay. So this is something the present day society has come out with this idea. Okay. That you animals also have certain rights, and you should be the behavior towards animals must be kind, and they should not be cruel to them. So so this is what I meant to say, that what is ethics? Okay, it's very difficult to define this. Okay. And then, of course, again, it's a very standard definition given by a dictionary, is that it's a branch of knowledge that deals with moral principles. Okay. So these are, again, as I said, very standard definitions. But then when you get into this business of ethics, you'll find that it's a big minefield. Okay. Then that was ethics. And then now we come to the word philosophy. So what is this philosophy? It's a Greek word. Everyone knows that. And philos is basically love, and sophy, knowledge. So love of knowledge, study of fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, existence, and sometimes it also refers to a certain thought process. Okay, you say a certain line of thought. Okay, so it's a philosophy of say, Karl Marx, okay, the communist guy, okay, Karl Marx. So the philosophy of Marx, okay, or philosophy of Kant, and or you can even have philosophy of Socrates, okay, or you can have even in Indian context you can have philosophy of certain Indian philosophers, okay, or it can be certain kind of a society, for example, like say Jainism, it's a Jain philosophy. So you can say that it's a philosophical thought, okay, system of philosophical thought. And then, as I said again, philosophy of certain people like Plato or Aristotle, they were all Greek philosophers. We also had Indian philosophers like Bauddhayan or we have many Indian philosophers who actually predated these Greek philosophers. Okay, and then also again, the study and theoretical basis of a particular branch of knowledge is also called philosophy. Okay, so for example, you are all registered now for your PhD. So what does PhD mean? PhD is Doctor of Philosophy. So you do a PhD in physics. So you do a Doctor of Philosophy in physics. But then a guy who does a PhD in philosophy is also doing a Doctor of Philosophy in philosophy. Okay? So it's basically it's philosophy of science. So any thinking or reasoning thought of a certain kind of branch of science, it means that philosophy of that particular branch. Okay. Then again, it also means that it could be an attitude that acts like a guiding principle for a certain kind of behavior. Okay. So like you have a line saying, don't expect anything and you won't be disappointed. That's my philosophy. So every one of you may say that, if you look, my philosophy is so and so, so and so. Okay. So it's like that. So, but then if you go more deeper into asking about what is philosophy, see, first of all, as I said, when you're talking about fields like physics, chemistry, or whatever you're doing, it's not really essential for you to go so deep into philosophy. But you need to know something about what it means and how it affects your own work at present. So, if you go a little deeper into what is philosophy, you always see that philosophers study questions for which there are no clear-cut answers. So all these people, you say philosophers. Even say when you talk, say if you take a field of physics, you run out of some problem in physics. Okay, you go on working on that problem. At that point of time, there is no solution for that problem. So you try to go on working on this problem, thinking about the questions which are there, and then trying to find out whether a clear-cut solution will exist. Sometimes, of course, they may exist, but sometimes they may not exist at all. Okay. So then when do you say that things are becoming philosophical? Okay. So it also happens that when the bare facts are not very clear, you say that, oh, things are getting philosophical. That is because the answers are not very clear. So basically what this means is that you are doing an investigation of some most fundamental questions, again at their most abstract level. So basically it's a search for wisdom and search for foundations of knowledge. Okay. Now, if you see this as an example, I'm sure everyone recognizes the figure on the right. That's the very famous physicist Albert Einstein. And the person on the left, probably some of you may not know, I don't know. It happens to be another great physicist by name Niels Bohr. Now, there was a running debate between these two people. Okay, there was a philosophical debate between these two people on what? See, Einstein started with theory of relativity and all those things. When Einstein first started out with his theories and treatises, quantum mechanics was not yet formulated. It's only when people like Bohr and Schrodinger and all these people started thinking about these aspects, okay, that was the formation stage of quantum mechanics. Now, what is the problem with Einstein and with quantum mechanics? See, Einstein was a guy who was firmly believing in what is called realism or reality of things. Okay. For Einstein, at that point of time, if something it's not clear whether something is existing or not, then that means it's not real. Now, unfortunately, when you talk about quantum mechanics, the whole basic funda of quantum mechanics is based on things like, say, probabilities. Okay, you talk about electrons. Okay, when you try to locate the position of electron, you talk about a probability. Okay, you cannot say that electron is here with 100% probability because that's uncertainty principle over there. Okay, so Einstein was not very happy with that. Okay, he said, no, 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 this cannot happen like this. So because he was a realist. But then this debate went on and on for quite a long time, in fact. Finally, of course, everyone knows that the principles of quantum mechanics were firmly established. And of course, Einstein did finally accept the quantum mechanical explanation of fundamental phenomena. But then this goes to show how philosophers would actually debate, okay? Because the facts are not very clear, okay? So you go on talking about it, debating about it, and ultimately, finally, of course, something comes out of it, okay? So now we talk about some philosophers. Again, this has been made mandatory by UGC that you should know something about philosophers. It's quite interesting, of course, to know about philosophers. So I just go through some of the most popular philosophers down the ages. I start with one of the most famous figures, Socrates. But why should I start about Socrates? I can start about an Indian philosopher also. But there's a small reason for that. See, the Indian philosophers or the Asian philosophers, they of course predated all these people like Socrates, etc. And the Asian philosophers never bothered to record their arguments and things like that. So whatever we know of the Asian philosophers or the Indian philosophers is only by what has been carried along by word of mouth. But whereas in the case of Western philosophers, there was a very conscious attempt made to preserve their arguments and in the form of papyrus rolls or whatever, or writing on stone, things like that. So they had a very good tradition of recording their arguments. So that's why when people talk about philosophers, they always usually talk about the Western philosophers. Fine, let's see what this guy has done. So Socrates was a guy who's lived in 470 to 399 BC. He is considered the founder of the Western philosophical line of thought. And this guy, he was from Athens in Greece. And who was this guy? Okay, so this guy was someone who went around the town of Athens asking questions with everyone. So he was a guy who started asking questions, inconvenient questions with people. He wrote nothing. Okay, he didn't write even a single line. And he was also famous for saying that I know nothing. Okay. And so people were a little confused about what he was trying to say. But then he had a very, very intelligent mind because he knew that people don't know many things. And the only way to find out what they don't know, what they know is to ask questions. So he used to go in middle of the town and then start a big lecture and ask questions with people. Okay. So, but why did he do that? He thought that by doing so, it will result in the well-being of the society. Okay. And he thought by asking inconvenient questions to people, he can make them better citizens, make them aware of their failings, and then somehow create an ethical system, okay, that would be based on ethical thought, what is right, what is wrong, etc. Because you see, in those days, the main thing for any society was religious doctrine. The religious people had a lot of power, and they used to lay down the laws, they used to lay down the principles for the social thought. So Socrates questioned that, and he started asking people inconvenient questions which will basically hit against this religious doctrines. So he wanted to create this awareness among people that look, you need to be ethical about whatever you do in life. So that was his very first way of dealing with philosophical thought. But then he went into bad books of the rulers at that time because he was asking such inconvenient questions, and then he was simply put to death by the rulers because they thought that he was creating a lot of trouble. So he was given a poison. This is a very famous painting which shows that he was given poison and he was uh, put to death. Then came Plato, and see, Plato was a student of Socrates. So whatever we know of Socrates this day is because of Plato, who wrote down whatever he learned from Socrates. Okay, and he was also known for founding the very first institute of higher learning in those days. It was called the Academy at Athens, and it was considered the very first institution of higher learning in the Western world. And Plato was very influential, and he was also the first guy to discuss what are called ethics. And he laid down certain virtues which define this ethics. So you call them the cardinal virtues like prudence, fortitude, temperance, and justice. And he recorded all of them in his, he wrote 2, 3 treatises like what is called a republic and the dialogues. Okay. And he wrote all these thoughts in that, in those treatises which he wrote. But he was the first guy who actually tried to write down what is ethics. Okay. So he wanted to quantify ethics. He wanted to say that, look, how do you define ethics? How do you define, can you put a number to ethics and do a certain calculation of a certain property and then say it's an ethical thing or not? Okay. So he was the first guy to start doing that. Then, of course, there were many other people like Aristotle, who was known for founding this place called the Lyceum. And then also he was known for this quote, the more you know, the more you know you don't know. Okay. That was a very famous, which was attributed to Aristotle, of course. Then there were many other people who in fact predated Socrates, like Thales, who said that, look, water is the most important thing in the world. Okay, without water, water is the most powerful thing. Then there was another guy, Heraclitus, who came and said, no, this change which is the most important in the world. Okay, like for example, he was also famous for saying that you never step into the same river twice. What did he mean that? He meant that, look, a river constitutes a flow of water. So when you step once into a flow of water, step again into that, you are not stepping into the same water. Okay. So this, he says, change is the most important thing. But then there came along another guy, Parmenides, who said, no, it is the permanence which is more important. Then there was another guy called Zeno, who was very famous for his paradox. You know what is the Zeno's paradox? You must have heard about all this, Achilles and the hare. Achilles and the tortoise, or the hare and the tortoise story, which we learn about in school and all those things. So what was that story? You say that, okay, there was a hare and a tortoise who set out on a race. So because the tortoise was known to be slow, the tortoise was given a certain head start from the hare. But then here the game starts. Now at time t equal to 0, the tortoise is at one point, the hare is behind. Now you take some finite time. The tortoise moves ahead by a certain amount. Okay. And then at the same time, if you see the hare, by the time reaches this point where the tortoise was there earlier, the tortoise would have moved ahead a little. Again, the next point you go and the hare reaches that point, again the tortoise would have moved ahead. So in principle, I mean, the hare will never catch the tortoise. That's what it means. So what is this? This is a study, in fact, of infinitesimal. Okay. Then there were many other people called Protagoras. Pythagoras is, of course, well known to all of you, and he Pythagoras theorem. But of course, mind you that Pythagoras theorem was actually predated by an Indian philosopher, Baudhayan, who actually founded that Pythagoras theorem much earlier than Pythagoras. Then we have Galileo, Descartes, who is known for saying cogito ergo sum, which is I think, therefore I am. It's a very philosophical statement. And many others, slightly modern people, Spinoza or Kant or Nietzsche, Engels, many. And we have also these Asian philosophers, Baudhayan, Buddha, Shankara, Shushruta, many other people. So they are all philosophers down the ages who always had these thoughts, thinking and asking questions. And the main aim was to improve the society and make it more ethical. Okay, so that's about philosophy. And now we come to philosophical questions. So we have all these fields which I told you, that mathematics, physics, biology, everything is considered to be philosophy. Okay. And then, as I said, there was a differentiation between these fields, which is mostly empirical and pure philosophy. As I said, philosophers today, even today, they still love asking questions, very often the same questions which were ages ago. And philosophers, of course, do not mind if they if they don't get the right answers, because that's their bread and butter, that's their business. Now, but what are these questions which philosophers talk about? Okay. For example, what is a good human being? Okay. It's a highly relative way of asking. What is a good human being? Then you say we want justice. So what do you mean by saying we want justice? Then you can ask question, can existence of God be proven, or is it a belief? What is the individual identity of a person? Okay. Then what does it mean to know something as opposed to believing that there is something? Okay. And what is saying that something is artistic in nature? For example, you see a painting by Picasso. Now, say one man X may find that painting is fantastic, but another man Y may, some Y or Z, he may say, what is this all abstract color here? What is artistic about it? So then, how do you determine what is artistic in nature? Okay. So that's also a philosophical problem. And again, the nature of reality. What is reality? So these are all which are typical philosophical questions which one comes across. Then, of course, the field of philosophy has been divided into certain branches. It's important to know this. There's something called metaphysics, which is that branch of philosophy that studies the nature of reality. Okay. Then we have something called epistemology, which is that branch which studies the nature and scope of knowledge. Then we have this value theory. See, value theory basically has two aspects. Ethics comes in here. Okay. So what is ethics? Basically, it studies and evaluates human conduct and morality. And aesthetics, it studies the nature of beauty. Okay. So we are concerned mostly with ethics, which studies and evaluates human conduct and morality. And then there is logic, that is reasoning. Okay. So by reasoning, you provide a robust argument that stands the test of time. So these are the typical branches of philosophy. Okay. Okay. Now we come to what are called ethics and moral dilemmas. So now we come to the point that why should you be concerned about ethics at this stage in your life? Okay. So what is this ethics? Is it some kind of science where the moral truths are waiting to be discovered and those which could be tested and proved whether they are right or wrong? Or it's some kind of subjective way of preference, okay? Like you say that I like cricket, you like football, okay? Or you might like baseball. Or is it some kind of an opinion or a cultural convention? So what are these concepts of right and what is wrong? How do you methodize this? Okay. Suppose you say that this is right and you prescribe a certain method to say that this is right. But then how do you safeguard it and how do you advocate that this is right? Similarly, if something is wrong, how do you categorize that a certain thing is wrong and then advocate that say this is wrong. So now, what is a moral dilemma connected with ethics? So what it means is that when you have certain available choices, okay, now given a certain number of available choices and a certain obligations on those particular choices, you find that these particular choices do not allow a moral outcome for that dilemma. Okay, so these kind of choices, there's many such situations which I'll talk about. Okay, you'll be really surprised to know that how so many such situations are there where you have a moral dilemma. Let's see a very common problem. In fact, it's a very famous problem. This is called the trolley problem. What is this trolley problem? Trolley is nothing but, of course, some kind of a railway car which is moving on a railway track. Okay, like it's a single small car, railway rake or bogie or whatever you call it, not as big as a normal bogie, but a very small one which is used for inspection and maintenance. Okay, so they have such a trolley. It is going on a railway track, and and suddenly the brakes have failed, and it is now moving very fast down a railway track. Now you see that ahead of this driver, there are 5 people who are working on the railway track, and this is a thought experiment, of course. And this thought experiment says that there are 5 people on the railway track, and the situation is such that these 5 people cannot get away from the tracks. They cannot save themselves. So if the train goes out the track, whatever the trolley goes ahead, it will go and hit those people and they will get killed. Okay, but then suddenly the driver sees that the track actually has a diversion which can go to the right. Okay, and the driver, he knows that he has the ability to some way that he can turn the trolley to a parallel track on the right. But then on that track, you see that there is one person sitting on that track and he also cannot move away from the track. Now, what should the driver do? Should he go straight ahead and kill the 5 people? Or should he turn right and kill one person? So this is what is called a moral dilemma. Now you can ask a question, is it morally permissible to kill one person to save 5 people? Some of you may say yes, and some of you may say no. Now I can ask you, why do you want to say yes and why do you want to say no? Now, for example, I can analyze it in one way. Suppose the guy goes ahead and kills those 5 people. Okay. In principle, he has not committed any mistake, or he has not intentionally done anything. He found he was in a train or whatever, a trolley, which brakes have failed, he couldn't do anything about it. So he goes straight ahead and hits those 5 people. But if he turns and goes on the other track where only one person was there, now he is taking a conscious decision that he has to turn the trolley from its natural path and intentionally killing one person. So in this way, he is actually committing a murder. Okay. So what is right and what is wrong here? Okay. So there is a problem, there's a dilemma here. So it is not clear. So this is what I meant by saying a dilemma. And the realism states, moral realism states that there are certain moral facts like scientific facts. Some things are just wrong and some things are just right beyond any doubt. So if you can have a morality which is based on such facts, then why should there be so much disagreement on what is moral and what is not moral? Okay, so this is one such example. I'll just quickly show you another example. Yeah. So all of you would have heard about a very latest phenomena called self-driving cars. Cars equipped with artificial intelligence, which can drive on their own. And they are already in business. Okay. Now I'll give you a situational problem. Say I have these are 3 lanes. Okay. This is 1, this is 2, and this is a 3-lane highway. Now this 3-lane highway, you are proceeding along in a self-driving car. Okay, you're not driving, it's a self-driven car. It has its own intelligence and is going along. Now in front of you, say there is one big truck. Oops, doesn't matter. So you are here. Okay. Behind you there's another car, you cannot stop. Okay. And then on your right, say there is one guy who is driving, say, a motorcycle. Okay. And on the left side, there's a guy in a very big car, which is that it's like a Innova or something, and you're going in a Maruti. Okay. Now what happens, the situation is that suddenly there's something which falls out from this truck, some big boulder or something which is carrying, and it happens in a split second. Okay. Now your car is being self-driven. You are not driving the car. Now in such a situation, if something falls here, if the car doesn't stop, it will go and hit this guy, this whatever has fallen, and it will result in damage to you. You may also get killed. Now another possibility is that it can turn to the left and hit this car, where it's a very big car and not much damage may occur there. Okay, so it can go there. The third option is that on the right there is a motorcycle guy, and you are sure that if you go and hit him, he is going to die. Now, how will you program a self-driven car in this situation? Should it go and hit straight ahead, or should it go to the right and kill the motorcyclist, or should it go to the left and then injure people here, but then you are still probably saved? So what does the person who actually does the programming for this self-driven car, what should he do? Imagine, so this should have been done much earlier, before the car is on the road. So, but suppose instead of a self-driven car, you are driving your own car, you are personally driving that. Still you have a split second time available to you to take a decision, and that decision of course will be a decision taken on the spur or the moment. You are not going to be blamed for that. It's not intentional on your part to swerve this way or that way. You may do whichever way. You take some decision which comes to your conscious mind, and you take the decision. So that is not an intentionally done thing. But then the guy who programs a self-driving car, he actually does what is called a predetermined action. So what should he do? And is that ethical for him to go on the left and hit the van on the left? Or is it ethical to go turn right and hit the motorcyclist? Is that correct? That is one problem. So this, and the guy has to sell this car. He has a self-driven car, the company has to sell the car. Now, a company which wants to sell the car, of course, it will take care of your own safety. Okay. So, should the company sell a car to you whose artificial intelligence says that you should go and hit a big car on the left? Or suppose you take one step ahead. Say here you have another motorcyclist here, okay, instead of a car. And you say that this motorcyclist actually is wearing a helmet. Okay. And this motorcyclist here doesn't wear a helmet. Okay. So now what do you do? What should you do as a programmer? Should you go and hit the motorcyclist with the helmet, or should you go and hit the motorcyclist without the helmet? See, the guy here, the guy who's going around with a helmet, he has done nothing wrong. He is following the law. The guy on the right, okay, he is driving a motorcycle without a helmet. He is breaking the law. So is it correct for you to program the car to kill a person who is breaking the law, or kill a person who is not breaking the law? How are you going to determine this? So these are something situational things which happen. I mean, just to give you a simple example, uh, what can happen when you talk about this moral dilemmas. And this is a very recent thing, or not too recent, about 10 years ago, this appeared in a paper. And do animals have ethics? You can ask this question, yes or no. If you say yes, how do you explain this? If you say no, how do you explain this? You know what is this picture? This picture shows a lion which has actually just before eaten the mother of this deer here. And then suddenly it found a small deer which is there. But then it didn't kill it. In fact, it petted it and then kept it with it for some time till some other lion came and killed it all. How do you explain this? Do animals have ethics? Okay. So this is something which is a totally gray area. Okay. Fine. So how much time? Our time. I already finished my time. Okay. So then maybe what I'll do is I'll try to continue this lecture in the next class. And of course, there's not much in this particular module here in this lecture. So I will try to finish the rest of the lecture in the next class and continue with this part. Okay. So thank you very much, and I would like to now open the discussion. If any one of you have any questions, you can please let me know, and I can try to answer these questions. A duplicate publication and redundant publication are the same. In a way, yes, duplicate publication is a subset of a redundant publication. That's true. That's right. But of course, here what it means is that when you talk about redundant publications, you're already putting a precondition that you're trying to change the result, the same result in a slightly different form, and then publish it elsewhere. But a duplicate publication is that you take exactly the same manuscript and then send it to another journal, knowing fully well that it is going to get published in one journal. So there's a small difference here. Okay. So this duplicate publication will be exactly a same publication has been now submitted to another journal. Probably maybe it's a predatory journal and you're willing to give it enough money and then send that paper over there. And so that is what is called a duplicate publication. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, fine. At the beginning of the lecture, I have shown you my email address. In case you want to send me emails also, you can write to me. I'll try to explain it in the next lecture. Thank you very much.
One more announcement.
Yeah. Just one more announcement. Firstly, I'll be taking a lecture on 23rd also instead of 24th. And there's one more announcement by. Huh? It's okay. Yeah. So there'll be a lecture continuously. Today it's 20, 20, 21, 22, and 23.
20, 22.
Oh, okay. 20, 22, and 23. Sorry. 24th, there's no lecture. Thank you very much.